Welcome to MgoBucks. It is Monday on game week, and we've got a lot to talk about because the game is just a few days away. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate that. Matt, what's up? Are you still
I was,
excited as you were yesterday?
yeah, I was thinking that we could maybe for this week only cross off the M on the logo and just make it Go Bucks. Can we do that?
Yeah, it's funny because when like someone said in the comments, which is hilarious, that name MgoBucks is just a little bit sacrilegious. And it's meant to be a little sacrilegious, but it is kind of. But it's the meshing of all of them. So I'm not ready to do that yet, but maybe after we talk today, I will be I will be ready because we're going to talk about the defenses. We're going to do kind of like a series where we're going to talk about the defense, the offense, but we're going to start with the defensive and their weaknesses on both teams. So I think that's what we'd like to kind of start out with, defensive weaknesses. And Matt, since you know the Buckeyes so well, and since we saw the defensive weaknesses so terribly last year, and also likely a lot in this Maryland game that we just played. What after this, after the season, after you've put it all together, like what do you see as Ohio State's weaknesses on defenses? And feel free to go over the specific uh, position groups and everything.
I think, I mean, the depth in our secondary is by far the biggest weakness. So I think against every team we're going to face from here on out, outside of USC, I don't think it's going to probably be as long as what we have doesn't get any worse as far as injuries. Cam Brown needs to stay healthy. That's probably like one of the biggest concerns on the whole team. Like he needs to stay healthy. That's even more important than the running back staying healthy because we just don't have any depth behind him. I mean, Burke has been okay. He's been a little bit better as of late, although he, wasn't as, no one really played that well against Maryland. But, some of that was them making great plays and him, baby Tua avoiding the rush and just somehow just making miracle passes all the time. But the other thing is just, we just need that in the number 2 and 3 corners. They kept rotating, trying to find someone that could make a play, and just no one was making plays. So we have one of the best safeties in the country in Ransom, but outside of him, Tanner McAllister was good earlier in the year, but I think he's been victimized a lot lately. And then the freshmen that they keep throwing in there at corner, they're sort of rotating, you know, with Burke and if when Cam Brown missed a few games earlier too, and they just keep trying to find somebody they can play decent. And luckily, like our options after the Michigan game, let's whether we win or lose, that we still probably have a good chance of making the playoffs no matter what, both teams. And Michigan doesn't have an amazing passing attack. Georgia
No,
has an above average passing attack, but not an elite passing attack. And TCU, they're good, but not great again. So, like, USC is, they're not a favorite to make the playoffs, but if they do, that would be the only team that can really take advantage of our weaknesses because run defense has been really solid all year. So, I'm not really worried about that outside of potentially Blake Corum being at 100%. And outside of that, run defense doesn't bother me. I think they've done amazing. Like our linebackers have been really good, but I would say the only other weakness that I could really think of would maybe be like our defensive tackles have been sort of. It seems like they've almost been, for some reason, not playing the young guys that actually have the talent to get to the quarterback and make tackles for loss and sacks. Like they've been just putting in guys that are the older guys that are just space eaters, which that serves a purpose too. And I guess it's hard to argue too much with results in the run defense, but the really elite defenses need to have defensive tackles that can get to the quarterback and make disruptive plays in the backfield, getting the running back 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So we don't really have that outside of, guys that are only getting 10 snaps a game for some reason. Like Mike Hall he just has not been playing, even though he's one of the most talented guys on the
why
team.
is that? Is that because he
Yeah.
doesn't know the defense? I mean,
Nobody
usually
knows. I have not heard any valid reason of why that guy's. I mean, he was on
conditioning,
fire at the
maybe.
beginning of the year.
I mean, I'm just throwing
Um,
things out there on why
I don't
you would
know.
have like a
Well,
really
I don't think you need to
disruptive
be in
tackle on
amazing
the bench.
condition to play more than 10 snaps. I mean, that seems
Yeah.
like he should be able to handle that. So I don't know if he's getting in trouble or if they're just
Maybe he's
something
just
he's just not
great
doing right.
sporadically. Like he's just one of those guys that's like makes an amazing play and then falls
I mean,
asleep
he was
for the
for the
rest of
longest time leading the team in sacks as a part-time player for the first half of the year. So yeah, it'd be nice to get him some more playing time. You get someone in the defensive tackle area that could step up, as like Zach Harrison and JTT are doing. I mean, and Sawyer. Like, there's so many, good defensive linemen. We just need that defensive tackle would be really helpful. So that's the other
Yeah.
weakness. So just secondary, just some average young corners, and then depth because of injuries throughout the year. And just Cam Brown is good, but we don't know if he can stay healthy for the rest of the year. So those are my big concerns
Yeah.
right off the top of my head.
I mean, looking at it, it's like if you break it down by position group. So the defensive line, the ends are the strength. The tackles are the weakness, right?
Yes.
So that would mean that a good running game coming after Ohio State might be an issue. But I don't know that Ohio State's even played anyone with a good running game, have they? Everyone that's been talented on offense that the Buckeyes have played has been really in the passing game. And
Penn State has a pretty good running game.
they did, and they didn't do bad. I mean, they didn't do bad in the run. They really consistently got 4 or 5 yards a carry. I'm not sure what they ended up with. I know the main running back. There's two of them. Can't remember both of their names, but the main guy,
Yeah.
he averaged like 6 yards a carry. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
You correct
I
me,
think
but
one guy did well, the
they
other
were
one didn't.
balanced.
But they didn't have too many. I mean, I don't know how much of it was overall we held them to a low enough number that they weren't breaking big plays, but that part of that might have just been bad coaching by Penn State, not giving them more carries. I mean,
That
it's
was
hard to say.
terrible coaching. I mean, they especially at the end when excuse me, Penn State had the lead. Like, and especially when the Buckeyes took back the lead, like they were still trotting the quarterback out, who was
Yeah.
accident prone to begin with, and
Yes, he is.
he is like very accommodating quarterback, and so they should have been running with their really good right. It's the fourth quarter; the defenses are tired. That's when you're running the running backs, right? They
That
should have
reminds
done
me of
more of
when we
that than
played
Penn State.
when Ohio State played Alabama in the semis, and they had Derrick Henry, and they didn't give him the ball. I was like, "Thank you,
Oh,
Saban."
they had a couple other guys though. I think running the ball then, didn't they? Who's
No,
the
no,
main?
they no.
They had
He
a
was the
main
main.
running
He
back
was the
that was
main.
he was second string, wasn't he?
I thought he was the first because they just didn't run the ball that game for some reason.
I can't remember what the guy's name was, but there were two. It was a two-headed monster, and I remember the one guy was a starter, real good 5-star, and then him, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
Derrick Henry. Um, but then if you go to the linebackers, Eichenberg is awesome. Like I hate to admit it, but he really is a
yeah.
good player. I can't name another Ohio State linebacker. I'm sure
Well,
you
Steel
probably can.
Chambers,
And Steel
Steel,
Chambers, that's true.
he's pretty
He
good.
too. So I mean, chances are the Buckeyes are only playing two linebackers at a time with the types of defenses they're running. They're playing a lot of nickel.
Yeah,
If they're playing four down linemen, and so those are you two linebackers. So they really are solid. Especially Eichenberg though. That's the guy I'm seeing a lot of, like making plays, getting into the backfield, just
yeah,
doing shit.
yeah. He's going to be an All-American for sure. It's just whether or not he wins the Butkus or not. He has a good game on Saturday. He might win the Butkus. He's been really good.
He very well could if we've got a bunch of injured running backs, for sure. We should be pretty healthy on our offensive line though, so hopefully they can get block those guys. We'll see though. It's at Buckeye Stadium, but and then so the secondary, Lathan Ransom, man. Well, okay, we're talking about weaknesses, so let's just not talk about that guy as much as I want to. Um, I know you have who's the corner that's really a problem. I think he's maybe your nickelback. You're playing a lot of nickel, so you got to play those guys. And I can't remember
Yeah.
his name.
Well, I know
He gave up a lot of
Jair
plays.
Brown is one of them. And then, the safety, Tanner McAllister, has been
That's
giving
the
up a
dude.
lot. He's the
That's the
safety.
dude that looks like he's like getting victimized out there.
Yeah, so he was transferred from Oklahoma State, and he played really well the first half of the year when we were playing scrub teams. But the second half, he's been victimized a little bit. So he's definitely a concern. Um, yeah, so basically just secondary, and that's a major issue. I don't know. I guess maybe against Michigan, maybe having a really good third linebacker might be helpful. I don't know if we have a
Maybe
proven third linebacker.
it depends on what Michigan does. Sure,
Yeah,
Michigan is. I'll tell you though, they're happy to throw the ball if you let them. They're not great on deep downfield passes, and they've been trying for like the last month to get their downfield passing game going. Um, they're still pretty good, like in the short and intermediate, and they use that to keep defenses off balance for their run. Obviously, it all just depends on if Blake Corum is healthy or not. We aren't going to
yeah.
find out probably till probably the day of. But I think that the Buckeyes have a top 25 defense. That's for sure. Even if they haven't been tested, I think we know enough about them that they have a top 25 defense, um, at least, maybe better. And so I think that just those questions with at least when you're talking about playing elite competition, the defensive tackles is a pretty big deal. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, your secondary is also a big deal, but I think you might be able to get through. I mean, getting through the Big Ten's different than going through playoff teams. And Michigan, Michigan sort of figured out the maybe a little trick with the Ohio State defense as far as you got to run the ball and keep running the ball, and then hoping in the fourth quarter that they're all tired out. That has to come with some explosive offense too. But I, Ohio State has definitely improved since last year. They're a top 25 defense. So I guess we'll see. I mean, we're not going to know until they play. All we have is the Penn State game at Maryland. Michigan and Ohio State have both played those two teams.
I do remember Iowa passing for about what 247
Iowa,
yards on you guys.
yeah, but we probably got the good Iowa team. The good
How
Iowa team that's playing right
there's a
now that's going to win the West. Iowa's going to win the
there's
West.
a
Do you
good
realize
Iowa
that?
team. I was not aware of this.
I mean,
Um,
not to get totally off subject, but can you wrap your head around that Iowa is likely to win the West? They
well,
just
the
moved
West is just a
Nebraska.
complete disaster, like it is most years. So it's just like either Wisconsin wins or it's a complete shit show.
Yeah, I was watching Menace to Sports. It was a while ago, and they were talking about how if Iowa wins, like they can't fire anyone. How are you going to fire someone like on offense? How you fire a coordinator after you just win the West, your
Well,
division?
because you're winning on
I
your
mean,
defense and you're like dead last in offense on every
offense has been
category.
doing decent. Did you see their numbers
Are you
last week?
are you sure that they weren't just short fields because the defense was intercepting everything and
No,
causing
they had
fumbles?
real yards and 60% completion percentage and
I
like
don't believe it.
two touchdowns. We'll have to bring it up.
Yeah, it sounds like fake news to me.
Yeah. So maybe we'll bring that up because yeah, I know you have to actually see it to actually believe it. So talk about Michigan. So when I look at Michigan and their weaknesses, their defensive tackles are actually, I think, their strength. Uh, those two dudes in the middle, Jenkins and Mozzie Smith, they're pretty much monsters. They don't get a lot of hype because they're defensive tackles, but and here we are. I'm talking about the strengths again. But I do think that they dropped a little bit. They dropped some production with Ajabo and from Hutchinson leaving, which was expected. We got better performance out of the ends, earlier in the year and throughout. I mean, they're pretty disruptive. They do a pretty good job. But defensive end is definitely just going by breaking it down by position group. Say the defensive ends are probably the least likely to go to the NFL, I would say. Mozzie Smith and Mike Morris on the defensive end. He's probably an NFL player. But then you go down to weakness. I think linebacker is a terrible weakness right now. Uh, right now, it's just like they're just not playing the way we all thought they were going to. We have an injury, Nakai Hill Green. He hasn't played all year long. He was out for the season. That hurt. And then our best guy right now, for some reason, his name's escaping me. He's a liability. He's pretty good in the run game. He's bad in the pass. It hasn't been good, and the Buckeyes are probably going to notice that probably when they turn on the film if they haven't already.
I bet they might.
Yeah, he's not great in the pass. I think it's going to be a problem when you line up that big nasty tight end of yours.
Yeah,
That
he's
looks
been
he's
so
really
good.
awesome.
Stover, he is just. I mean, I guess it's the first tight end to get 30 receptions or something like that, and since Ben Hartsock. Yeah, everyone every year it's sort of the joke before the season starts. Is this the year that we finally utilize the tight end? Because I mean, Rucker was good. We've had a bunch of tight ends that have been drafted and are in the league, and we barely ever do anything other than have them block for us.
Yeah,
So
5-star tight end to do
he has
mostly
just been,
blocking.
yeah, he's just been fantastic. I
Yeah,
mean, I
he's
still
been a good
even with
surprise.
Marvin Harrison and Ibuka, I want him getting even more plays now, even than I would say he's definitely better than any number three receiver we have because
He's destructive out there when he's running his routes and catching the ball. He's like a little
yeah,
bit like Gronkowski, a little bit
yeah, he,
like
God,
not that
yeah,
good, but I mean,
yeah. They call him
he's just.
Farmer Gronk.
Why is he from? Is he from the
Yeah.
South or something,
Well, no, he's
or
just
from a
grew up
farm?
grew up on a farm, and he makes amazing plays like Gronk. So
Yeah, he
yeah,
really does. Yeah, we're gonna have to keep the ball away from him for sure. But and then you go into so linebackers. I think that they're an issue. The defensive the defensive secondary is the bad part is there's like no superstars back there. They're all very solid. Mike Sainer still converted from wide receiver, and like he's our best nickel player. He's a starter out there.
so I remember Tony Gerdeman was saying something about how you guys had your number two corner was a weakness. Is that not an issue?
Jamon Green, yeah, he's the guy that got whacked in the tunnel against MSU pretty badly. But he was a much bigger liability last year. This
Hmm.
year he's been solid, but I would definitely say between him and the other corner, you've definitely you'd be targeting him for sure. Um, they're solid. Even Jamon Green, he's solid. He's 6'2", 6'2" corner. He's got quickness. Probably not playing in the NFL, but um, I think he's been really solid though. I mean, he's always had like good coverage. He's lost some of those 50-50 balls. He's got out muscled a couple times. Being as big as he is, it's kind of surprising, but he's definitely the least. If you're targeting someone, you're going after him.
So how's your pass rush been so far?
Pass rush has been awesome. They've got they were leading. I know the league, the our league in sacks for a good amount of time, but I don't know if we can do it against Ohio State. It's kind of like the Ohio State has such good um, pass blockers.
Yeah,
I
our pass
just don't know.
protection has been fantastic.
I mean, it's unfair the amount of time that he's got back there, and they're going to employ the same system as last year. They're going to rush 4 and hope the other guys can cover. That's really what's going to happen, and hope that those 4 guys can slow down the run. We'll see if it happens. You got a couple banged up running backs. Um,
And our right guard was probably out. So
oh, the right guard,
yeah, Matt Jones is probably not going to play.
and oh, Matt Jones. There's Dewan too, right? But Dewan is going to
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, Michigan is going to. They know their weaknesses are at linebacker, so I'm not sure what they're going to do on that front. Um, but I think that's one of the reasons why I sort of think even in Ohio State's the offensive line, the guards aren't great at running. They might have some success because the linebackers for Michigan just aren't they're just not holding up right now. I
Yeah,
mean they're okay in the
Illinois ran pretty well against you guys.
very surprising, very surprising. But I think that a lot of times happens that everything kind of like uh, implodes when you can't run your offense because the offense is built so much just keep the defense off the field. And I know offense doesn't really affect defense, but that defense was not playing very well. They just weren't. Now, granted, they only gave up 14 points though. Gave up a lot of yards, but they only gave up 14 points in the whole game.
Yeah,
And
I guess that's probably gonna be the other big thing is the red zone. So both teams have had, we were really good at the beginning of the year, and then ever since the Iowa game, our red zone deficiencies have had sort of come back to bite us, and outside of Indiana. But so against what Penn State, against Iowa, against Maryland a little bit, just not quite able to finish off as many drives, and it's so hard again to try to figure out what's going to happen because we have so many people that could be hurt on both teams that like, it's hard to even
true.
guess what's going to happen. Like we have a new offensive lineman starting. We don't know how that's going to turn out. Our line has been close to our starting five have played have started in every game except for one. I think DeJuan Jones missed one game, and other than that, the starting five has been the same the entire year. So if we have someone new, at guard, that's a new thing that we haven't seen yet. So it'll be interesting to see what that's going to be like.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, if we think about the game last year, so Michigan's defensive strategy, knowing how good the offense was for Ohio State, was to let what happens between the 20s happen, um, but also make Ohio State like have a lot of plays, make them run a lot of plays to get down the field, and they did that. If you remember right, like even in those times where the Buckeyes actually scored a touchdown, it was taking them 4 or 5 minutes to get down the field, and that kind of takes them out of there. They want to be quick strike, like take you out of the game immediately, and that was kind of the defensive mode. It's going to be the exact same this year, and because they're thinking the more times Ohio State has to snap, actually, more times we'll actually get pressure and possibly get a 3 and out. Well, no, it wouldn't be a 3 and out, but at least a punt, an
Yeah.
occasional punt would be a win. Um, I think defensively, what's going to keep that from happening this year? I think, well, Ohio State, the quarterback, CJ Stroud, is in his second year, right? I mean, he's going to be better. He's better than he was last year, even if his numbers don't really flesh it out. I feel like he's better than last year. He's more. He knows what he's doing more.
Yeah.
Um, I think that they are going to have a game plan for that type of defense, and Michigan's going to have to adjust somehow. It's going to be really fascinating to see the second half adjustments in that game. Not that the first half isn't going to be awesome too.
So what do you think the final score would be if both your starting running backs aren't going to be able to play at all?
Uh, Pain.
Worst case scenario.
Oh gosh, we're not talking about scores yet, Matt.
No,
This
no,
is only
this isn't a
this
prediction.
is
This is just
only
what
day
if it's.
two of game week.
I was trying to make you feel bad thoughts.
Oh well, I'm already feeling bad thoughts because it's just going to be stress, like all the way up until that game to see if Blake Corum's going to play or not. That like the whole team is on his back,
Well, I
and
mean, both running backs really, because I mean, the other guy has a better average than Corum.
Edwards, yeah, but
Edwards.
Edwards gets thrown in there, and he gets every once in a while they don't know if he's going to run out for a pass or not. I mean, that's not like Corum. Just they know Corum's going to run the ball. They line it up. It's not a secret, and he still gets his almost 6 yards carry. So it's pretty amazing. I think that Edwards isn't as good of a running back right now. He's probably a bet. Edwards is probably our best receiver.
Yeah.
Not to get into the offense here too much, but he's got a cast on his hand. Like it's his best thing that he does is receive, and he's got a cast on his hand. So I don't know how this is going to turn out. This is awful.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think probably the most likely scenario is going to be Corum playing and only at like 75 or 80%. And can they give him a cortisone shot? And is that going to be good enough? And is he going to be able to make it at 75%? Is he going to be 75% for the whole game, or is it going to get worse?
Yeah, don't know. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to figure out exactly like
I
how
mean,
they're going to play.
adrenaline is a pretty amazing thing, but that's the other thing. So, like, your adrenaline's going to be going, and then that whole first half, let's say, but then during halftime, maybe that wears off a bit, and then the knee just gets swollen up or something, and he can't go the second half. I mean, being able for
We'll
him to
see.
be able to play the whole game would be pretty impressive.
It just depends on how significant it is and how long it takes to heal. I have no clue. I have no clue about that kind of an injury. He looked like he was in terrible pain, but then he walked off the field. So
Yeah, he was holding underneath his knee, so I mean,
he
it could have been a
hyperextended maybe.
hyperextension MCL. Like even if it's not a tear, a sprain, usually people miss a few weeks for that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of surprised, like, because he said he'd be back, but he didn't say when he would be back.
Be back
So
for
yeah,
the bowl game. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
All right, man. Talked about the defensive weaknesses. We're not going to talk about too much. We've got the whole week
yeah.
to talk. Hey, next maybe tomorrow we'll get together. We'll talk about maybe the offensive weaknesses. I think maybe that would be good. Then we'll talk. Then we'll end on a positive. We'll end on the defensive strengths and the offensive strengths leading
Sounds
up
good.
into the game. Yes, I agree. I agree. Well, man, go blue.
Go Bucks.
Have a good one.